Apologize to my mother or get out of my life, my husband said while our 3-year-old son stood beside me, clutching his red fire truck. The retirement cookout went silent. I picked up my child, climbed into the Porsche, and drove away. Then my mother-in-law ran after us screaming, "Leave my son's car!" What would she do when she learned the car and the house behind her were mine? "Leave my son's car!" My mother-in-law's voice cut through the open window as I eased away from the curb. In the rearview mirror, I saw her running down the driveway in white sandals, one hand raised, as if a louder command could make me stop. Behind her, relatives stood frozen. My husband was on the porch. He did not follow us. He did not call my name. My 3-year-old son sat in the back seat, holding his red fire truck against his chest. He was not crying. That frightened me more than tears would have. His thumb moved over one wheel. A few minutes earlier, my husband had looked at me in front of everyone and said, "Either apologize to my mother or get out of my life." I answered with one word: "Fine." I did not pack my clothes. I carried my son through the house, opened the hall closet, and took the overnight bag I kept ready for preschool emergencies. My husband followed us as far as the porch. He watched while I buckled our son into the car, but he never tried to stop me. Then his mother screamed about the Porsche. I did not speed away. I checked the straps across my son's chest, kept both hands on the wheel, and drove through the neighborhood at the posted limit. The air conditioner hums, tires rolled over pavement. Behind me, my son breathed in even rhythms. People often imagine that the moment a woman leaves her marriage must be loud. They picture slammed doors, or one final speech. Mine sounded like cool air moving through the vents. I could endure being underestimated. I had done it for years, but I could not let my son learn that a man could humiliate his wife simply because his family stood behind him. 10 minutes later, I pulled into a hotel without leaving Fairfax County. I carried our bag upstairs and sat my son on the bed while he placed his fire truck beside the pillows. Once he was settled, I texted my husband. I told him the hotel name, confirmed that our son was safe, and offered a video call. I said he could meet us in the lobby if needed. I did not send the room number. The message showed as read. He did not ask about our son. He did not answer. That silence told me this was no longer a family argument. I called the emergency number for the law office that had handled my grandmother's estate. A receptionist took my information and asked for copies of the deed and vehicle title. Minutes later, a confirmation appeared on my phone. They would call me at 8 the next morning. I set the phone down and watched my son sleeping between the hotel pillows. Tomorrow, I would not shout louder than they had. I would let the documents speak, but to understand why my mother-in-law believed the Porsche and the house belonged to her son, I have to take you back 20 minutes before I drove away. 20 minutes earlier, my backyard had looked like any ordinary retirement cookout in Northern Virginia. Folding chairs borrowed from my father-in-law's church lined the grass, red cups sat beside paper plates, and a grocery store sheet cake waited near the kitchen door. Relatives had driven in from Maryland and across Virginia. The grill smoked beside the fence while a happy retirement banner moved in the warm air. I had spent 2 days preparing between my civilian job and an Army Reserve training weekend. By the time the guests arrived, I was tired enough to feel every small remark more sharply. My mother-in-law began by praising her son. She thanked him for giving the family such a beautiful place to gather. My husband stood near the grill and smiled without correcting her. Then she described my reserve service as a weekend hobby that forced other people to watch my child. The comment came with a laugh, as if disrespect became harmless when everyone was expected to smile. I told myself not to react. I had always believed the most mature person in a room was the one who stayed calm. Later, I learned that silence can also teach people they are free to keep going. When I carried a bowl of potato salad outside, my mother-in-law looked over my dress. "Did my son buy that for you too?" 2 relatives lowered their eyes. No one answered. My husband checked the meat on the grill, though nothing needed turning. He wiped his hands on a towel, then wiped them again. I knew that expression. It meant he wanted me to let the moment pass. So I did. Later, my mother-in-law raised her cup for a retirement speech. She spoke about rising housing costs, medical bills, and maintaining an older home on a fixed income. Those fears were real. I understood them. Then she smiled at my husband. The best part is that we will not have to worry about where we are going. Our son invited us to move into the downstairs suite while we look for something smaller. The family applauded. She reached into her handbag and placed 2 paint samples, a moving company estimate, and a photograph of a bedroom set beside the cake. I looked at my husband. He did not look surprised. He looked at the grill. I would have considered helping his parents. What I could not accept was having that help announced as my duty, in front of an audience, so refusing would make me seem cruel. Before I could ask what he had promised, my mother-in-law crouched beside my son and smoothed his hair. "One day," she said loudly, "you will understand that your father is the one who keeps a roof over your head." I set down my glass. That was the moment I could no longer stay silent. I kept my voice low. "Do not tell my son that his mother contributes nothing to this home." My mother-in-law rose and pressed one hand to her chest. She did not answer me. Instead, she looked around the yard and accused me of ruining my father-in-law's retirement party. No one spoke. The grill hissed near the fence. A paper plate slid across the table in the warm breeze, but everyone seemed to be waiting for me to surrender. My husband finally left the grill. For 1 second, I expected him to say, "Mom, that was inappropriate." Instead, he looked at me, apologized to my mother. I stared at him. For asking her not to lie to our son? His eyes moved toward the relatives. I could see him measuring the room, deciding which choice would cost him less. Then his jaw tightened. Either apologize to my mother or get out of my life. Our son looked from his father to me. His hand closed around the red fire truck until his knuckles turned pale. That decided everything. "Fine," I said. "I am not arguing in front of our son." I lifted him into my arms and carried him through the kitchen. My husband followed, but only far enough to ask how far I planned to take this over one comment. I did not answer. I took the overnight bag from the hall closet and walked to the car. He stopped on the porch. He did not reach for our son. He did not ask me to stay. He watched while I fastened the straps across our boy's chest. Then I drove away, and his mother ran after us, shouting about the Porsche. Some assumed I left because my husband ordered me out. The truth was harder. I left because our son was watching. If I had apologized to keep the party peaceful, I would have taught him that a man could humiliate his wife in public as long as she loved the family enough to endure it. At the hotel, I gave my husband our location, confirmed that our son was safe, and offered a video call. He read the message. He did not respond. If you are still listening, please leave a comment telling me what city, state, or country you are listening from, and what time it is where you live. I always want to know who is sharing this journey with me, and when in their day. Your presence means more to me than you may realize. At 8 the next morning, my attorney called my husband. She did not threaten him. She only asked him to review the ownership records for the house and the Porsche. 15 minutes later, my phone rang. He did not ask whether our son had slept well. His first question was, "What did you tell your lawyer?" My attorney had explained the basics before she called my husband. The house had come to me before the marriage. There was no mortgage. The deed carried only my name, and major repairs had been paid from my grandmother's estate account. The Porsche was purchased before the wedding with money from inherited land. The title was mine. She reminded me that one night in a hotel did not mean I had abandoned my home. I had not crossed state lines or hidden our son until we had an agreement. I was not to empty the joint account or change the locks. 15 minutes after her call, my husband reached me. He said I was turning one terrible afternoon into a legal war. I did not argue about the paperwork. Instead, I asked, "Why did your mother think she had the right to throw me out of that house?" He blamed her at first. He said she exaggerated and liked telling relatives that her sons were successful. "What did you tell them?" I asked. The silence changed. Then the truth came out in pieces. He had told his family that he bought the house before our wedding. When someone asked why my name appeared on the deed, he said it was for tax reasons. Later, he told them the Porsche was an anniversary gift from him. I sat on the hotel bed and watched my son sleep. My grandmother had raised me when my mother could not stay sober. The house still had the same creaking third stair. The maple tree was one we planted together. The dining table was where she helped me with homework and taught me to keep important papers. She used to say, "Never sign what you have not read, and never lose the record of what is yours." My husband had not only taken credit for property, he had turned the last shelter my grandmother gave me into a prop for the life he wanted others to admire. He explained that his mother had compared him with his older brother for years. His brother earned more, traveled more, and always seemed to make her proud. I understood the ache of wanting a parent's approval, but there is a wide distance between wanting to be seen and building that image by making the person beside you look smaller. I remembered family dinners when someone praised him for the house or car. He had smiled, and I had let it pass. Then his voice dropped. "There is something else." He admitted he had promised his parents the downstairs suite. I asked whether it was only something he said to calm them, or whether he had started making arrangements. He stayed quiet too long. That silence made me open my laptop and ask my attorney for 18 months of joint bank statements. The bank statements arrived after my son fell asleep. The hotel room was dark except for my laptop. Its light reflected off the fire truck beside his pillow. I started with the oldest statement. At first, the transfers looked small enough to miss. $300 marked Dad, $600 for a roof repair, $800 for a credit card payment. Each one had left our joint savings without a conversation. Then I found the larger charges. $2,400 had gone to a moving company. I recognized the name from the estimate my mother-in-law had placed beside the retirement cake. Another $1,850 had paid for 6 months of storage. $1,275 was labeled downstairs renovation. There was also a payment to a company that measured stairways and bathroom doors. I added everything twice. $11,860 had left our account over 16 months. That money had been set aside for emergencies, repairs, our son's future, and months when one of us might lose work. My husband had used it to prepare his parents to move into my home before asking me. I called him and read the charges one at a time. He did not deny them. He said his parents were struggling. Retirement had reduced their income, their roof needed work, and helping them was what a son should do. I understood helping family. I did not understand why it required hiding the truth from his wife. "Why did you not tell me?" I asked. His answer came quickly. "Because I knew what you would say." I sat still. He had not forgotten to ask. He had decided that knowing my answer gave him permission to remove my right to give it. A marriage does not break because of one transfer. It breaks when one person believes the other person's voice can be removed from decisions shaping both lives. He called it poor communication. I saw something more serious. He expected me to adjust. If I objected, I would become the selfish wife refusing 2 retired parents a home. For one angry moment, I opened the banking app and prepared to move every remaining dollar. Then I stopped. Financial independence did not mean acting without restraint. If I wanted to protect myself, I had to be more careful than those who ignored my rights. I called my attorney. She told me not to empty the account. Instead, I downloaded every statement, saved copies, redirected my future salary into an individual account, activated transaction alerts, and kept communication in writing. After I saved the document, a message appeared from one of my husband's relatives. "Is it true you are using lawyers to steal his house?" I stared at the screen. My mother-in-law had begun telling her version. In that version, I was no longer the woman driven from her home. I was the greedy wife taking everything from her son. By the next morning, the rumor had traveled farther than the truth. My mother-in-law told relatives that I had taken the house, kept her grandson away, and used lawyers and army connections to punish her son over one argument. Messages arrived from people who had never asked what happened. I could have answered with the deed, the vehicle title, and every bank statement. For one angry minute, I wanted to post them all. Then I stopped. Public humiliation had created this mess. I could not use the same weapon and call it justice. My attorney helped me move from anger to structure. My future salary went into an account in my name. The joint savings stayed untouched while she reviewed it. My husband and I agreed to a temporary parenting plan with pickup times, shared medical and school information, and one rule that mattered most. Our son would not carry messages between us. My husband rented an apartment near the preschool. He returned his house key and collected his clothes at an agreed time. I took our son to the park so he would not watch his father pack. When I returned, one closet was half empty. I stood there longer than I expected. We had once talked about growing old in that house. Watching his belongings leave did not feel like victory. Consequences do not stop hurting simply because they are deserved. The messages continued. One person asked why I was destroying a good man. Another said military women were used to controlling everyone. I answered none of them. Then my father-in-law called. His voice sounded tired. We had asked his son to show him the deed. He had also learned that some money sent to them came from our joint account. This family needs to hear the truth from beginning to end, he said. I agreed to meet in a neutral family counselor's office, but I gave him one condition. I will not expose him for him. If we meet, he tells the truth himself. My attorney prepared copies of the deed, the Porsche title, the inheritance records, the bank transfers, and our parenting schedule. The meeting room had 4 upholstered chairs, a low table, and a box of tissues. There were no family photographs and no familiar walls for anyone to claim. My mother-in-law entered carrying a folder. Before she sat down, she accused me of taking her son's property. I did not open the deed. My father-in-law turned toward my husband. You asked us to come, now start talking. My husband stared at his hands. I remained silent. For the first time in our marriage, I would not explain for him, protect him, or rescue him from the shame he had created. The evidence was on the table, but the first truth had to come from his mouth. The room stayed quiet until the air conditioner became the loudest sound. My father-in-law looked at his son. My husband admitted the house had come to me from my grandmother before our marriage. There was no mortgage. The Porsche had been bought with money from inherited land, and the title carried my name. He admitted telling everyone he had bought the house. He admitted calling the Porsche an anniversary gift. He admitted I had never agreed to let his parents move downstairs. My mother-in-law stared at him. You let me say those things while you knew the truth? Yes. She asked why he had not corrected her. He said he was tired of being compared with his older brother and wanted to look successful. Then I asked, why did you let them treat me like I lived off you? He looked at me. Because if they respected you, my story would not work. The words cut deeper than every insult. Their contempt had not been an accidental result of his lie. It had helped keep the lie alive. He admitted paying the moving company deposit, storage fees, and the person who measured the downstairs bathroom and stairway. He believed that once everything was arranged, I would feel too guilty to refuse 2 retired parents. He had arranged things so saying no would make me look cruel. That was not poor communication. That was taking away my choice while pretending to be a good husband. Instead of apologizing, my mother-in-law said I was weaponizing paperwork and using lawyers to keep her grandson away. Then she brought up my Army Reserve weekends. Maybe a judge should hear how often you leave your child for military work, she said. She added that they could look into grandparents' rights. I kept my voice level. Every training weekend was planned with his father. I gave him our location and offered a video call. Any further custody threat goes directly to my attorney. She demanded that her son confirm I had kept him from our child. He did not protect her. Mom, stop. She has never kept my son from me. My father-in-law said using a child as pressure had to stop. After reading my name on the deed and title, my mother-in-law said, I am sorry if you felt insulted. I answered, I did not misunderstand you. You humiliated me in front of my son. An apology begins by naming what you did. My husband asked whether we could go home now that the truth was out. The truth coming out is not the same as trust coming back, I said. The separation continues. I left with the deed in my bag, but I did not feel victorious. I had never wanted to defeat him. I had wanted him beside me when his family made me small. Now the truth was on the table, and our family was breaking apart. If you are still listening, please comment below and tell me how satisfied you are with the story so far. It helps me know that people are still walking beside me. Your presence is my greatest encouragement to continue telling the final part. Leaving the counselor's office, I expected relief. Instead, I cried at the first red light. I was not crying because I doubted the separation. I cried because the family life I had trusted felt built around rooms that never existed. People often think that when someone finally faces consequences, the injured person feels better at once. That was not true for me. Justice was not anesthesia. It did not erase the wound. It only kept the wound from getting deeper. 2 days later, my husband sent a message to every relative at the retirement cookout. He stated that the house and the Porsche had always belonged to me. He wrote that I had contributed fully to our family, never kept our son from him, and that his mother had no right to order me out of my home. He also admitted why he had lied. He felt smaller beside his older brother, and he had used my property to build a version of himself his family would admire. He showed me the message before sending it. He did not ask me to soften a sentence. Afterward, he signed a repayment plan for the money taken from our joint savings. Every payment would be documented. The moving deposit and storage costs would come from his own account. He also began individual counseling. He said he needed to understand why disappointing his mother frightened him, why comparison made him lie, and why he let others carry the consequences of his choices. Those steps mattered. They were not enough. Our son and I returned home. The rooms were quiet in a way I had never noticed before. My husband's coffee mug still sat beside the sink. I washed it, dried it, and placed it in a cabinet. I could not bear to see it every morning. I could not pack it away. That night, while I tucked our son into bed, he held his red fire truck and asked, "Daddy went away because Grandma was mad at Mommy?" I sat beside him and kept my answer simple. Mommy and Daddy need time to make better choices. You did nothing wrong, we both love you. The next day, my husband and I repeated those words during a video call. Children do not need every adult failure explained. They need safety, routine, and certainty that they did not cause the break. 1 week later, my husband brought our son home after his scheduled visit. We were discussing preschool when my mother-in-law's car turned into the driveway. She had not called. She walked toward the door and said, "I need to see my grandson. This has gone far enough." I felt my husband tense beside me. Before, that tension always became my burden. This time, I waited to see what he would do next. My mother-in-law stopped a few feet from the front door. "I have a right to see my grandson," she said. Before I could answer, my husband stepped between her and the threshold. "Mom, you do not enter her home unless she invites you." She stared at him. "You are choosing her over your family again." He shook his head. "No, I am taking responsibility for what I helped you do." For years, whenever his mother became upset, he expected me to absorb it. If she criticized me, I was asked to ignore it. If she crossed a line, I was told she meant well. Keeping her calm had always become my job. This time, he let her anger belong to her. She demanded that he bring our son outside so she could see him privately. My husband refused. He reminded her that the visit had not been scheduled, that she had not asked permission, and that our child would not be used to settle an adult argument. For one moment, I expected him to soften. I expected him to ask whether we could make an exception. He did not. My mother-in-law walked back to her car and drove away. My husband did not follow her. He also did not ask me to excuse her behavior because she was hurting. Real change often appears when someone has every chance to repeat an old pattern, but chooses something different. That evening, my phone showed a voicemail from her. It was nearly 4 minutes long. For the first time, her apology did not begin with the word "if." She said she had humiliated me in front of my son. She admitted treating me as though I depended on her son for everything. She acknowledged screaming about a car that had never belonged to him and helping make a little boy feel unsafe in his own home. Then she admitted using the fear of losing her grandson to threaten me as a mother. "You do not owe me forgiveness," she said. "I only wanted to name what I did." I listened twice. A real apology names the harm. It does not hide behind intentions. It does not demand comfort from the person who was hurt, and it accepts that consequences may continue. I did not call her back. I could recognize that she had apologized correctly without restoring every privilege she once assumed was hers. 3 weeks later, she sent a short message asking whether I would meet her and my father-in-law at a public park. She did not ask to see my son. She asked for 30 minutes to talk. I agreed. Before leaving home, I wrote every boundary on a sheet of paper. Emotion can make people forget promises they once made to themselves. I was not going to forget mine. The park sat behind the public library. My father-in-law was already on the bench when I arrived. My mother-in-law sat beside him. He greeted me, then stayed silent. For once, he did not speak for her. She said retirement had frightened her more than she admitted. Their monthly income was lower than expected, the roof needed work, and medical bills had begun arriving more often. She feared becoming a burden. Then she admitted something harder. My husband's stories about the house, the Porsche, and his success had comforted her. They made her believe she had raised a son who could protect everyone. When I challenged that picture, she treated me like the danger. I listened without interrupting. Fear can explain why someone makes a terrible choice. It does not make the choice harmless. Fear may explain what you did, I said. It does not excuse what my son heard. She lowered her eyes. I took the folded paper from my purse and read the boundaries aloud. No parent would be criticized in front of my son. Every visit had to be scheduled. She could not arrive at my home without permission. My finances and military service were not family gossip. Photographs required consent, and my son would never carry messages between adults. She did not argue. I agreed to begin with short visits in public places, planned around my son's comfort. Later that week, my husband asked whether I would attend marriage counseling. I agreed to 90 days. Counseling is not a promise that you are coming home, I told him. During our third session, the counselor asked whose approval he had protected at the cookout. My mother's, he said. I protected it at the expense of my wife and my son. Then she turned to me. What did your silence protect? I wanted to say it protected my marriage. The honest answer was different. It protected me from conflict. My silence had not caused his lies. Those choices belonged to him. But if I wanted a different life, I had to recognize my own pattern. I had surrendered my voice so other people would not feel uncomfortable. The counselor gave us a rule I carried home. Forgiveness is personal. Access is earned. Trust is evidence gathered over time. So I began watching evidence instead of promises. My husband kept every counseling appointment. During my mother-in-law's first visit, she arrived early but waited in her car until the scheduled time. The changes were small and ordinary. That was why I began to trust them. 6 months after the cookout, our son's birthday approached. Both sides of the family were invited. Then my husband's sister sent him a joke about the property war. He showed me the message. I know this will be a test, he said. He was right. The birthday party was held at a neighborhood park, away from the house and everything people had turned it into. My husband arrived early with folding tables, paper plates, and juice boxes. He set everything up without waiting for praise. My mother-in-law arrived at the agreed time and stood beside the shelter until I invited her to hug our son. For almost an hour, the afternoon felt ordinary. Children ran between the swings and slide. Balloons pulled against their strings. My son laughed as his grandfather chased bubbles across the grass. Then my husband began cutting the cake. His sister stood nearby and said loudly, "Did you ever think you would win the whole family property war?" A few relatives gave uncertain laughs. I opened my mouth, but my husband set down the knife. "There was no property war," he said. I lied. The house and car were always hers, and she paid the price for the story I told. He did not look at me for permission. He told them I had never forced him out of property that belonged to him, because it had never belonged to him. I had not kept our son away. He had taken money from our joint savings without asking, and the family needed to stop repeating his story. His sister's smile disappeared. Then my mother-in-law spoke. That subject ends here. The moment lasted less than a minute, but it mattered more than every private apology. A person does not truly change because he tells the truth in a counselor's office. He changes when the truth costs him comfort before the people he once wanted to impress. By then, my husband had repaid almost all the money. He had kept every parenting exchange, shared his financial records, and continued counseling. We also met with separate attorneys. The agreement confirmed that the house and Porsche remained my separate property. Large gifts to relatives required both of us to agree. Neither spouse would carry hidden debt created by the other. Our household accounts would stay open, and our son would never become a bargaining tool. My husband signed after his attorney reviewed every page. Legal clarity was not proof that love had failed. After financial secrecy, clarity allowed affection to exist without fear. I still did not invite him to move home. We began with dinner twice a week, family days, and continued counseling. He kept his apartment. After 2 months, we would decide what felt safe, not what felt familiar. After the party, we sat on a bench while our son chased bubbles with his grandfather. If I come home someday, my husband said, can we build something that belongs to both of us, even if the house never does? He was no longer asking about ownership. Maybe, I said, but we build it slowly, and we build it truthfully. 1 year after the retirement cookout, our backyard was full again. This time, there were no speeches about who owned the house. Everyone brought something. My father-in-law carried a bowl of potato salad. My mother-in-law set down a tray of rolls and waited by the gate until I invited her in. My husband had moved home 3 months earlier. He had kept his apartment through the trial period, continued individual and marriage counseling, shared every account, and asked before making large financial decisions. When his mother disagreed with a boundary, he handled the conversation himself. He never used our son to ask when he could come back. Trust did not return when his suitcase crossed the doorway. It returned through small choices. Some wounds still existed. We simply stopped pretending that love required us to ignore them or rush past what had happened. That afternoon, my mother-in-law asked before making plans with our son. When I said the visit needed to end before dinner, she accepted it without asking my husband to change my mind. None of that looked dramatic. That was why it mattered. While everyone arranged food on the folding table, my son climbed onto my lap and looked toward his grandmother. Grandma knows whose house it is now? I smoothed his hair. She knows, but more important, she knows this is your home, and everyone here has to treat one another kindly. He seemed satisfied with that answer and ran back toward the yard. The house and the Porsche were still mine, but ownership was never my greatest victory. My victory was refusing to teach my son that keeping a family together required one person to accept humiliation. I had spent years believing silence made me mature. Sometimes it did, but when silence became the price of belonging, it began taking pieces of my self-respect. I did not win by exposing people online or making them suffer in public. I won with records, truth, clear boundaries, and the freedom to decide what happened next. Before dessert, my husband stood beside me while our son carried napkins to the table. He looked across the yard, then back at me. I am grateful to be home. This time, the word home did not sound like ownership. It sounded like responsibility. Do you think I was right to give him a second chance after he proved his change through action? Or should I have ended the marriage for good? And how satisfied are you with this ending? Please share your honest thoughts in the comments.